Today, we're not just opening a book, we're starting a descent, a journey into the chilling, psychological terror crafted by one of literature's great masters of the macabre, Ambrose Bierce.
Just let that sink in for a moment. That's the opening line to one of his stories. It's not just a shocking sentence, it's a mission statement. It tells you right away that you've entered a world where there is no sentimentality, a world where the most unthinkable acts are stated as simple, brutal fact. And with that, we begin.
You see, to really understand the horror, you first have to understand the man. Ambrose Bierce wasn't just writing stories. He was the architect of a uniquely dark worldview, one forged in the fires of a very, very hard life.
His childhood was defined by two things he absolutely despised: grinding poverty and an incredibly strict form of religion. These experiences brewed this deep, lasting hatred for his own family. And that bitterness, it became the very lens through which he saw the world, fueling the savage wit and brutal irony that just drips from every page he ever wrote. So from the man himself, let's turn to his philosophy. And honestly, the clearest window we have into his mind is his satirical masterpiece, The Devil's Dictionary. Think of it as the cynical foundation for all of his horror.
Bierce just systematically takes apart our most cherished ideas. Take love. For him, it's not some sacred, beautiful emotion. Nope, it's a sickness, a kind of temporary madness that reality, in the form of marriage, will inevitably cure. Ouch.
And what about faith? Well, to him, it wasn't divine truth, not at all. It's a purely human invention. It's the story we tell ourselves because we're afraid of the dark and, frankly, too ignorant to understand it. It's a coping mechanism, not a path to salvation.
His contempt just spread to everything, including all of our social structures. Justice, in his world, isn't some noble ideal we should strive for. It's a product, a commodity that the state sells you in exchange for your obedience and, of course, your taxes. Fairness isn't a right, it's a transaction.
So in the end, even the very search for meaning was to him completely meaningless. This bleak, nihilistic worldview, this is the toxic soil from which his terror grows. A world without hope, without justice, without real love. Well, that's a world where horror feels right at home.
So, if that's the why behind his cynicism, it really begs the question, what about the how? How does he translate this bleak philosophy into stories that genuinely get under our skin and terrify us? What is the architecture of his horror?
All right, let's step into the stories themselves. It's time to really dissect the mechanics of his craft, the actual techniques he uses to build this prison of fear around you, the reader.
Bierce's horror often starts with the world itself. For him, nature isn't just a passive backdrop. It's a hostile, menacing force. The landscape isn't just described, it's judged. The clouds aren't just clouds, they are a visible curse.
And this reveals his first fundamental technique, creating dread through pure desolation. The oppressive atmosphere makes you feel doomed before anything has even happened. The setting is the monster, trapping you in a world that seems to actively want you to suffer.
But the threat isn't always out there. This is where Bierce gets really clever. He masterfully shifts the horror inward. The enemy isn't in the room, it's inside your own head. This indefinable sense of peril is terrifying precisely because you can't see it, you can't fight it.
This brings us to his second, and maybe most disturbing, technique, the unreliable narrator. By using storytellers whose grip on reality is, let's say, questionable, Bierce forces you to doubt everything you're being told. The line between what's real and what's delusion just evaporates, leaving you completely and profoundly unsettled.
And he builds this incredible uncertainty on one critical insight. What is left unsaid is often way more powerful than what is shown. He deliberately leaves these shady corners in his stories, these dark little gaps for our own minds to wander into.
And this is his masterstroke, the power of the unseen. Bierce makes you an active participant in your own terror. By leaving these gaps and refusing to explain everything, he forces your imagination to fill in the blanks. And what you can conjure up is always far more personal and terrifying than anything he could ever write on the page.
Okay, let's come up for air for a moment. After plunging into the depths of these stories, what's the ultimate message? What's the final, chilling lesson that Ambrose Bierce is trying to leave us with?
This is the absolute core of his work.
Bierce's terror is psychological and philosophical. The most terrifying things out there aren't ghosts or demons, but the terrifying capacity for madness that lives inside each of us in our lonely, tiny place in a cold, meaningless cosmos.
So, after taking this journey into darkness, after seeing how the whole thing is built, what's our final verdict on Bierce's work?
So the collection we've been exploring is called Terror by Night. It is pure classic horror, a deep psychological thriller. This is definitely not for fans of cheap jump scares. This is for readers who crave that thick, atmospheric dread and who aren't afraid to wrestle with some really deep philosophical darkness.
I think one reader just captured the experience perfectly. They described the stories as rich puddings, laced with some unknown intoxicant. And that is so true. These are not light snacks, they are dense, they are potent, and they are deeply unsettling. You have to savor them, and I promise you their disturbing flavor will linger long after you've closed the book.
For its sheer, masterful power to build and sustain psychological dread, for its completely unflinching worldview, and for its absolutely brilliant prose, our final grade is a resounding 9 out of 10.
Now, if this descent into darkness has left you wanting more, don't worry. There are other authors who have walked these same haunted literary paths.
Two really stand out. First, you have to read Edgar Allan Poe's Tales of Mystery and Imagination. It shares that same intense focus on the psychological fragility of its narrators. And second, you should check out Robert W. Chambers's The King in Yellow. It's a classic work of weird fiction that was directly influenced by Bierce, and it even expands on his haunting mythology of Carcosa.
Make sure you follow and subscribe for more deep dives into the most compelling stories and ideas. Until next time, be wary of the shadows, especially the ones you find within your own mind.